Welcome to the Badaboom podcast. My name is Chris. On today's episode of the podcast, my co-host Troy and I review Constantine, House of Mystery. The recent DC animated film is now available on HBO Max and showcases several shorts that highlight Kamandi, the Losers, and Blue Beetle. Listen in and hear our thoughts. What's up, man?
What's up?
The other night, what came on HBO Max, which was exciting because I had forgotten it had come out, was DC Showcase Constantine, the House of Mystery. With some of these animated movies, I forget they exist. I forget, because when you go into Best Buys now, they don't even really have movies out.
They don't.
So it's hard to be reminded. Even when I was in Target, you don't find movies. So sometimes unless it's like a Green Lantern, which I'm super hyped for, I sometimes forget. And what do you know? When I opened HBO Max, I saw John Constantine's beautiful face. And I was like, we have to watch it. We have to talk about it. And I didn't expect what I saw.
I didn't either.
I thought it was going to be like, because especially with these shorts, they're really never the platform to kind of be, a part of a larger continuity, but it is.
And it's not really like shorts because it's not like, oh, hey, you can go through and see how long each individual episode is. It's like, no, this whole thing is like an hour and we just have 4 smaller stories in there, which I'm glad we got this one because the first one, which is Shazam versus Black Adam or Superman versus Shazam, that one we've talked about some of the stories in there with Green Arrow and what they're doing with that in Young Justice, but that one I've watched that entire showcase so many times, and this is like the second showcase, and I hope we get more of these showcases because they're great. And it was unexpected. I knew we had the John Constantine House of Mystery one coming out, but all the other 3 were bonuses for me. And I was like so excited to watch them. And I think they're all really good.
Particularly like the strongest one is obviously the Constantine one, because we get Matt Ryan back, who, seems to be they, as much as they want to kind of, bring a new Constantine to live action and stuff, it's kind of the definitive Constantine because now he's played this character, like 100 times at this point. He's been in live action in his own show, in Legends of Tomorrow, in the animated universe, has starred in several animated films, including this one. So it's always good to hear his performance as Constantine. And this showcase, what's interesting is that it ties into the Apocalypse War, which came out a couple years ago, which somehow, some way, when I watched it, I didn't expect this either, was, kind of like a Flashpoint too.
Yeah.
And this showcase deals with the consequences of that, which was interesting. And speaking of that, that showcase you brought up earlier, there was a great Spectre showcase years ago, and Spectre plays a really important part in this one. And it was dope. It was violent, which, I didn't expect. Had a great twist, and I enjoyed it.
I didn't enjoy the ending. This will be our spoiler alert going up right now. But I didn't enjoy the ending. Constantine kind of is like punished by the universe after escaping eternity in the House of Mystery. John Constantine, like, hey, he always kind of finds his way out of something, and, oh, we're going to do something different. That's most of the time appreciated. But I thought it would have been really interesting if the Phantom Stranger would have showed up and told the Spectre, we need John Constantine for something on Earth, or if he had convinced the Spectre to possess John Constantine like he did with Hal Jordan. I thought that would have been a better twist than like, oh, hey, you're just going to suffer the punishment of the universe, which we didn't see if he dies or anything, but it's just like, I just felt a little unsatisfied with the ending.
Well, for me, I thought that was cool because, for Constantine, the bill never comes due. Like he's always saying like, oh, I'm going to get punished. He's always playing with forces that, to anyone else, they get punished. And he's always seems to weasel out of things or find a way out, whether it be in stuff like adaptations like this or in the comics. So I thought it was interesting that Spectre was like, actually, the punishment you were experiencing was self-induced. The real punishment is this.
Yeah.
And that was a real, I love that twist. And it was strong. It had like a really strong like beginning, middle, and ending.
That could have been like a full-length movie if they had maybe put more time into it, or maybe they just thought, yeah, we don't really have any more story to tell, and that's why. And it because it is like 20-30 minutes long. It's the longest showcase out of the four that are there.
Yeah, but it serves as an epilogue for that
Yeah,
universe because that flashpoint that happens at the end of Apocalypse, they've already started to build a new universe. That universe that's, set with, not Justice League, Green Lantern, also Superman, Man and Tomorrow
the
is referred to in
Flash.
Batman Hush. It's already kind of like being built. And I feel like there isn't no one really remembers what happened. So it's hard to kind of like address, this really big event that led to the creation of this universe. So this showcase is a way to kind of be like, hey, like if you're wondering where Constantine is in this, new universe, actually he's being, eternally punished for his actions. And I thought that was cool.
Yeah, and plus there's not too much of a connection from the jump in on some of this newer content to reference, oh yeah, this is a change. Like if you're maybe just getting into it, you probably would just thought, oh yeah, they just are changing the style that these things are drawn in. They're going a different artistic direction, but in reality, that change in artistic direction is completely tied to the Flashpoint event. But the other three ones, we got like Blue Beetle, Kamandi, and the Losers. What you think about the other three on the showcase?
I really loved Kamandi. Anytime they're able to, highlight like Jack Kirby's work, I love that. It had a really great art style and an adventure tone to it. I did like the the Blue Beetle one because it reminded me of like Birdman and Space Ghost a little
Yeah,
bit, just how ridiculous it is. And it also, when I was a kid, I used to love that, that really old Spider-Man cartoon. And it felt like that, like the stiffness of the animation and the way they were able to adapt that was cool. And the Losers was like intense, surprisingly.
it was. It was
I was
crazy
like, for
intense.
me, my only experience with the Losers is the Idris Elba movie with Chris Evans and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and that was a really fun movie. So like to see this like hard nosed like war movie where it yeah it was intense.
I've been talking to people at work and being like, "Hey, have you seen this? Have you seen this? It's got these, and these in them." And whenever I bring up the Losers, people are like, "Wait, wait, wait, the Chris Evans movie that is in this?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that was a movie. I don't think I've seen that." And they're like, "Oh, well, if the showcase is just as good as the movie, then I'm all in." And I'm like, "I should
Yeah.
probably watch the movie," but the short itself was pretty good. And I do have to say the Blue Beetle, I kind of got annoyed at it a bit, but once I was like, all right, don't take this so seriously. I really enjoyed it. I rewatched it with that mindset, and I was like, all right, this is a good short. And it reminded me, DC always has this weird ability to say we can take our content and make it very adult or very we don't have to take it so seriously, and people will love it if not more. And like that's exactly what they do with the Harley Quinn, which in the newest episode of Harley Quinn, Constantine, same voice actor, makes a quick cameo. So it's really cool that DC can say, yeah, we're gonna make like this very raunchy, very R-rated, very adult kind of content with some of our characters. And it's not gonna tarnish our brand. Whereas Marvel did that, it would probably be like, ooh, that's going to turn a lot of people off. So I think the DC showcase is like it. They don't really do it in this kind of showcase, but just the aesthetic of like the Ted Core Blue Beetle episode, I was like, oh yeah, this is very Space Ghost. I could see something like this being on Adult Swim in the future, but like with more adult jokes in it.
Yeah, on one hand, you want DC as a fan to get their shit together. On the other hand, as a fan, because they don't have their shit together, they can experiment with things like this. Something like this would never happen at Marvel. They'll hold like a character like Constantine, kind of like, hey, we're holding this for the movies, we're going to do this. Also, the Blue Beetle, those things, Kamandi, you wouldn't see those characters in any light, whether it be a short. And shout out to, Warner Brothers Animation and DC for always figuring out a way to kind of highlight these, lesser known characters or stories through these shorts. I remember on YouTube, they had these really cool shorts with like the Doom Patrol and stuff like that. And it's a really cool way of like, giving fans of maybe obscure characters like let them know that they're seen and that their characters are top of mind. But now with the shift in that company, it is good to watch these things and enjoy them because they may not be around, under the new leadership.
Going forward, like I always want to have more of these kind of showcases because I think that highlighting these lesser known characters, especially like in animation, is a great way to get people into the characters themselves and also into some of their comics, which if you also haven't heard our last interview with Joe, you've got to listen to that interview and listen to how comics and trades are kind of like made and published because you'll be like, wow, it's a pyramid scheme a little bit. And if you do start getting into some of these smaller characters like Ted Cord, you'll realize, wow, it's kind of tough to find comics around these guys. So it's a good listen. Definitely check out our previous podcast for a conversation around that. But Chris, my question for you, would you want to see more DC showcases where it's an hour long, like up front, and then you just have those four in between? Or would you rather these kind of shift more towards like an anthology, kind of like how Love, Death, and Robots is, with maybe a shorter runtime, but with more episodes? So like maybe like each one's like 12 minutes long, but you get 8 of them as opposed to like 4 20-minute episodes.
I love that. That's an awesome idea. I think with that Love, Death, Robots approach, you can give artists like a platform to kind of showcase like different like animation styles, whether it be CG or, traditional 2D animation, and really go far with those things and have fun and explore different areas, or, tackle characters that may, not have appeared in movies in some fashion. So I'd rather something like that. Or, like we talked about this with Injustice. Like I would love for them, to kind of skip on animated movies and maybe do an animated series of some of these stories. There's a lot of story with some of these characters, and if you put the investment in, you can get a pretty good return. Like really, like when it comes to a character like Kamandi, there's not going to be a Kamandi movie ever, so might as well create like a fun animated series that you can explore things. Blue Beetle, obviously, we're getting Blue Beetle next year, but that's Jaime. Like Ted
Yeah.
Cord's adventures are fun. I would love to see Ted Cord and Booster Gold together in some fashion, which would be cool. And animation does, like, I think it's the first thing that gets cut when these big cost cutting measures go into effect at media companies. But they're doing God's work. They're able to do so many cool things. Like the reason a lot of us are even DC fans are because of those animated series back in the day. So I want to see more of it, not less. And I think the reason I say less of, the animated movie side, it's like, hey, like these things come out on Blu-ray. The places you go and get Blu-rays don't even sell them that much
Yeah.
anymore. So it's like, hey, like you're literally, and granted, I'm sure they look at the numbers and there are people buying these and it makes financial sense in some capacity, but it definitely limits the reach of some of these stories.
Yeah. And real quick, just going back to the Love, Death, and Robots thing, I've watched a couple of interviews where the artists that make them, they're very concerned about the art and the story they can tell. And I think DC has a really great opportunity to kind of mimic the Love, Death, and Robots kind of business model, because you have all these great characters and you can have writers and artists come in and be like, yeah, we want to change something to look like this, or we want to tell a story with these people. And that's like most of the work. I feel like being like, all right, I have to create my character, I have to create the setting, I have to think of like, what are they going to do? How are they going to react? And it's like you have a treasure trove of all those things, and you can just take the DC characters and put them in the situation and the story that you're wanting to tell. And, doing like 10, 15-minute shorts, people are going to be watching those cutting them up, making YouTube videos. They're going to be on TikTok and Instagram like crazy. So it's a great opportunity. I think DC should really take advantage of it and do something like that.
It seems like there's nothing stopping them. I'm saying that, but
Well,
I'm
yeah,
sure there's a lot of things going on there, but it's something that they have. It's a part of their history, animation. And if they want to further that, I think they have a lot of characters they can do a lot more with. And you see how popular these characters are. Multiverses is like the biggest fighting game ever right now.
yeah,
And it's like very bare bones as a free to play. So when you put like quality behind these brands, these IPs, like people will respond to it. So it's not a matter of like, is Marvel better than DC or DC better than Marvel? Like, when you tell good stories or, when you put in good work, like it will reflect.
for sure. That's what it's all about. Just telling a good story.
Yeah.
And with that, bada boom.
Bada boom.
Thank you for listening to the Badaboom podcast. Keep the conversation going with Chris and I on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. You can find us on all these places at Badaboom Podcast. Get into the comments on our YouTube channel. Let us know what you like about the show or what you'd like to hear from us in the future. Until next time, please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Thanks for listening.